Unicorns. They are real. Hi, warriors. A viewer sent me an email and asked me to talk about the relationship between being lonely and social anxiety and depression and how the two are interconnected. Well, although social anxiety as a category, as a pathology, can be a category, a whole category per se, I think being socially anxious and being depressed is interconnected with depression in many ways, especially in the ways that the viewer was describing. So I want to talk about the relationship between the two here today and see which solutions can we find for this vicious circle that can sometimes be created. Because if you're shy, if you're socially anxious, it can of course make you lonely. And if you are lonely, you don't have social support. And we all know, or at least people who deal a lot with depression know, that social support is essential when you're depressed, and is essential for your mental health, because we are tribal mammals. We are not lonely wolves. No man is an island, like they say. If you don't have social support, you get depressed, and then if you get depressed, you tend to retreat even more and not want to see anyone. Especially when you're depressed, also your self-esteem goes down, so you feel miserable, you feel inept, you feel like you cannot do anything anymore or see anything anymore because you feel worse than everyone else. At least during my two depressions, I felt like that, and I think that's a common feeling, unfortunately. I can totally relate to this problem because I, for one, also suffer a bit from this kind of anxiety. I come from an abusive family system, and that kind of screwed up my social abilities. I had to work a lot on it. I had to go to therapy, and this is actually my first advice for anything: go to therapy and go work on your skills in therapy. If you have seen my video on getting injured in sports and getting injured in real life in your head, you will see that I made a comparison between the two, and I said that. Uh, as for your muscles, your physical muscles, your brain also has to be trained. So when you're depressed, your brain has to be trained. You have to take small risks little by little. So this is the same as for social anxiety or social insecurity. When you're at home feeling miserable, feeling depressed, that's the worst way to deal with your problem. So you have to expose yourself to the problem. In psychology, they call it exposure therapy. So you have to expose yourself to the problem in order to see that you can cope with it. They do it, for example, with people that have OCD, and they check if they lock the house 500 times. They expose these people to not checking and seeing that if you don't check that you locked your house, then maybe you've locked your house, so it's not necessary. So you see that you gain self-confidence, you gain some confidence in yourself, and you see that also this was mostly your brain playing tricks on you. So I would advise going slow and trying to put yourself out there. Putting yourself out there is risky, of course, because maybe you're going to take some punches. Not everyone is going to like you. I remember that for me, when I'm depressed, during my two depressions actually, my professional situation also got a bit screwed up. So I was insecure about not having as good as a job as everyone else. I wanted to meet other people, but that barrier kept coming up. Well, the thing is, you have to do it anyway, and some people will look down on you, some people will not like you, some people I don't know, but that's just part of the game. You have to do it. You have to do it because staying at home is not the solution. It's not going to solve the problem. The only thing that's going to solve the problem is little by little exposing yourself to the problem. And you'll see that the more that you expose yourself, the less big the problem becomes. Because if you're staying at home alone thinking about it, then this becomes a big issue in your head. If you go and face it, you see that it's not that serious anymore. My and that's one of the things also that cognitive behavioral therapy teaches is that it asks you what is the worst that can happen, and that's also a thing that you have to ask yourself. If I go to that party, if I see those people, what is the worst thing that can happen to me? Well, the worst thing that can happen to me is that I sit in a corner, depressed, alone, maybe I'll get drunk, and I'll be miserable, and I'll go home and I'll cry. That's the worst thing. That's not such a bad thing. That's not such a bad thing. And then the more you practice it, the more numb you get to rejection or anxiety or whatever. It's like those guys who are the players, and I'm not saying girls cannot be players, I mean, for sure, of course, but those guys who whose life motive is to screw to go to bed with a lot of girls. Well, these guys get rejected hundreds of times and they don't care because they became rejection proof, because they know that after 100 times there's going to be one girl that's going to say yes. I'm not saying this is the way to go. I'm not saying these are the this is the perfect example of our society. I'm just trying to come up with an example to tell you that at some point you'll get immune to being rejected by people who don't want to be your friends or who'll make fun of you or who'll look down on you. You won't care. So how do you expose yourself to people? Maybe you don't just show up at someone's house and say, hey, can I crash your party? Well, there's alternatives that you can use. One of them, and I use it a lot, is meetup.com. I don't know if in other countries a meetup is that big. I know that I'm from Portugal, and in there people don't mix a lot, so meetup is not that big. But in Belgium and Brussels, there's a lot of expats. What is it? It's a website where you have several categories of interests. For example, people who like jogging, people who like I don't know, hiking, people who are LGBT, people who are vegans. So you can put yourself in one of those groups, and most likely than not, people who are in those groups are going to be people who want to be friends with someone, who are looking to be friends with someone. So they're going to be in the same situation as you. Another suggestion that I would have is take a class or something, or join a group within your within your interests. For example, if you like, I don't know, pole dancing, join pole dancing. I did that once and it didn't work very well because I screwed up my wrist, but fine, it was fun. Join a class, for example, of something that you want to do. And if that doesn't work, just maybe you can volunteer as well, because volunteering is something that also is going to make you feel useful. It's going to make you help others, and helping others is really good for overcoming feelings of depression. And I cannot stress this enough. For me, this was very important. It was very an important step in my social life. Now I'm much more relaxed about it because of it. Go to therapy, because therapy can make you really work on your social angsts, on your fears, because maybe if you're feeling lonely and if you're depressed and you have social anxiety, if you're feeling insecure, that's gonna have to do with the fact that you're insecure. And behavioral activities can help, but you have to go to the core issue. Why do you feel so insecure? What is the root cause of it? And that only a therapist can solve. So I hope this helps. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me again, and comment on the link below. Tell me what you think. Okay, good luck and happy healings.